Well, good afternoon, everybody. Bill O'Leary here, attorney at Legacy Planning Law Group, coming to you live on our Thirsty Thursday series. Getting started a few minutes behind schedule. Was in a meeting, just got out of it. So happy Thursday to everybody. And so, for those that maybe are coming across us for the first time, this is what we call our Thirsty Thursday series, where every Thursday at about this time I will go live on Facebook to talk about a topic that sort of relates to what we do at my law firm: estate planning, elder law, maybe some probate, talk about trust, that sort of thing. So if you are thirsting for knowledge, you've come to the right place. So what is today's topic? Today's topic is, what assets should I put into a trust or leave out, and why? And why? So first of all, what is a trust? What is a trust? Perhaps you've heard of a trust, don't really understand what it is, and that's okay. Most people don't. Most people do other things for a living. I live and breathe this stuff. But picture this, that a trust is nothing but a box. It's nothing but a box. So when you put a trust in place, all you are doing is building a box. And when I say all that you're doing a lot more legally, but in terms of understanding what it is, to try to simplify it down to its bare essence, all you're doing is you're building a box. And as part of building this box, you are addressing or answering, if you will, four questions that are very important to you, very personal to you. Number one, you're deciding who gets your stuff. Number one. Number two, you're deciding what they get, right? Number three, you're deciding when they get it. And number four, and probably the most important of the four, you're deciding how they get it. Who, what, when, and how. Very important that you actually go through that exercise of answering those questions down on paper, because if you don't, guess what? Guess who answers those questions for your loved ones? The government. And it may be answers your loved ones don't like. So, why are trusts put in place? Well, a very, very common reason is to make sure that when you pass away, your loved ones are not bogged down in the court system dealing with your estate in what we call probate. So trusts are used very often to make sure the family is not stuck in probate, that things will pass more smoothly and easily than it would if they had to go through the court system. So great, we've sort of talked about what a trust is. It's a box, the questions that a trust answers, the who, what, when, and how, and why a trust is used. So in order to make sure that any trust that's put in place is going to work, is going to succeed for you, succeed meaning to make sure that the family is not stuck in probate, it's very important to make sure that once the trust is put in place and is legal, to put your assets in the trust. Put your assets in the trust. And some people refer to it as funding of a trust. Funding of a trust. And if you do any digging around on the internet, you will discover that term used fairly often, funding a trust. Personally, I prefer the term aligning your assets with the trust, what's called asset alignment. And here's why. Because really there are two ways that an asset can be aligned with a trust. One is to change the ownership of the asset from you, your name, into the name of your trust. That's called retitling an asset into the trust. And at least the way I think of it, that's to me what funding a trust means: moving assets into a trust, into the box. Well, there's a second way that an asset can sort of be lined up with a trust, and that is to keep the ownership outside of the trust, but maybe take steps to make sure that that asset will go into the trust after you pass away. Commonly done with certain types of financial assets through what's called a beneficiary designation, life insurance, for example. So with life insurance, you can name a beneficiary of that death benefit payout, and after you die, it goes straight away to that beneficiary. You can name a trust as the beneficiary so that at your death it's paid to the trust. In fact, that's what we always do with life insurance. We don't retitle the policy, the ownership of the policy, into the name of the trust. Other assets that we can commonly use a beneficiary designation with payable into a trust or retirement accounts, IRAs, 401ks. So again, it is critical for a trust to succeed for you, to work the way that you want, so that the family's not stuck in probate, that the assets be aligned with the trust. Now, let's talk for a minute about specific assets. Again, it goes back to the question or the topic of the day: what assets should I put into a trust or leave out of the trust, and why? So let's talk about your home. A home is commonly put into a trust where the house is transferred into the trust by way of a new deed. A deed is used to reflect ownership of real estate. So the house is transferred into the trust. And what's nice is, under our law in Florida, that homestead exemption that you have for your house, that homestead exemption continues after it's moved into the trust. It continues. So a house is very often put into a trust. Now, what about retirement accounts? Retirement accounts, again, IRAs, 401ks, 403bs, TSPs, all of that stuff. Do we move those financial assets into the trust? Do we retitle those financial accounts into the trust? And the answer is no, we do not do that, because it would have a bad tax consequence. It would sort of blow up tax-wise. Instead, what we do is we look carefully at the beneficiary designation so that we can have that retirement account payable into the trust after you pass away. Okay? Now, if we're going to be using a trust to receive the retirement account money, the IRA money, let's say at your death, you've got to be careful to make sure that that trust has some specific provisions, legal provisions in there that sort of meet the tax rules, so it's going to work for the retirement account. But again, we can use a trust to receive the retirement account money after you pass away. Life insurance. As I just mentioned a couple minutes ago, we never change the ownership of life insurance into the trust. We always keep the ownership outside, continue the ownership in your own name, but we will perhaps change the beneficiary designation on the policy to have it paid to the trust when you pass away. Let's talk about bank accounts. Let's talk about bank accounts. And first, I'm going to talk about a bank account that is owned by just one person, an individual bank account. Would we retitle that into a trust? Well, very often we would. Very often we would. And so it's a matter of going down to the bank and filling out some forms to say, I want to change the ownership of this account from me to the name of my trust. Now, there's another way we can go about making sure that that bank account is sort of lined up with your trust in the way that you've set it up. And that is through what's called a payable on death designation, or a POD. And for an individual account owner, we would consider this if we're dealing with maybe a bank that says, okay, if you want to retitle a bank account into a trust, we're going to force you to close out your existing account and open up a new account. And some banks require that. Well, a lot of people don't want to deal with that hassle and get new checks, issued and so forth. So there, we'll say, all right, we're going to sort of take a path of easier resistance, if you will, and we'll keep the account the way it is in the individual's name, but we're going to, similar with life insurance and retirement accounts that have a beneficiary designation, with a bank account, there's a type of beneficiary designation called a POD, payable on death. We're going to change that to name the trust so that when the individual passes away, it gets paid into the trust. So that's what we often will do with payable on death, is have it paid to a trust if the individual has a trust. Now, what about a joint account? Let's say an account held by a married couple. How do we handle that? A little differently. Now, we can retitle that joint account into the trust. We can do that. There's nothing preventing us other than maybe the bank having a policy saying we're going to force you to close the existing account and open up a new one. But if we are dealing with a bank that doesn't require that, well, we can go ahead and retitle that joint account into the trust, filling out the appropriate paperwork. But here's the problem. when that bank account is owned together as husband and wife, it's given tremendous protection under the law. If one of the spouses gets into some legal liability, let's say they get into a car accident and it's their fault, and they hurt somebody badly or kill somebody, and now you've got a lawsuit coming, and they go ahead and win, and they get a judgment, and now they're trying to find assets to collect. Maybe there's not enough insurance to cover the amount of the judgment, and so if one of the spouses gets into that car accident, the question is, can that injured person come after that jointly held bank account held as husband and wife? And the answer is no, they cannot. That joint marital account is given great protection under the law. Well, what happens to that protection, that asset protection, if you will, if we take that joint account and move it into a trust that husband and wife set up, a joint trust? What happens to that protection? We lose it. Don't know about you, I kind of like that protection. We lose it, okay? So what we may do is say, look, let's try to sort of maximize two things. One, the protection that you get under the law from creditors, and also your trust and your estate planning objectives. So let's keep that marital account outside of the trust, owned by you both, but let's then fill out a payable on death, again, POD designation, and have it paid to the trust at the second death. And so let's say then both husband and wife were in a car accident and they perished together. They know that while they were alive, that was protected, and then at the second death, that account's going to be paid into the trust. And so again, that's sort of very thoughtful, intentional alignment of your assets with the trust in a way that's going to maximize the protection, the creditor protection you can get under the law. With respect to investment and brokerage accounts, sort of very similar to the bank account scenarios I just painted. Instead of a payable on death or POD designation, they have what's called a transfer on death or a TOD designation. Okay? So again, with an individual, we can retitle that investment account into the trust, or maybe keep it outside if the bank is giving them trouble. And with a joint account, we may keep it outside and have the transfer on death TOD designation paid to the trust. Other assets we can put into a trust, a business. You want to say like an LLC. Let's say that LLC owns a rental property. We very commonly will put that LLC ownership interest into the trust. A tangible personal property can go into a trust, jewelry, furniture, and so forth. So again, this is just sort of a high-level overview of what assets, again, today's topic, what assets should I put into a trust or leave out? Hey, if you'd like to know more, and maybe know how we can help, we'd be happy to talk to you. Go ahead and book a free 15-minute sort of discovery phone call. You can book it on the Facebook Now Facebook page. Just go to the Book Now page, or just Google us, LegacyPlanningLawGroup.com. Again, this call is complimentary, and it'll be a chance for us to sort of continue the conversation. So, hey, if you've enjoyed this video, I'd ask that you like it, better yet, share it. Just trying to get the word out, share it with your friends. I really appreciate that. So, I hope you've enjoyed this talk. What assets should I put into a trust or leave out of the trust, and why? Again, as I said at the beginning, I plan on giving another talk next Thursday about this time as part of our Thirsty Thursday series. So, as I like to sign off with, if you're thirsting for knowledge, we will quench your thirst. So, Bill O'Leary signing off for now on behalf of Team Legacy, the best team ever. Go make it a great day.